Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 17 of Unlimited Opinions. I'm Adam Bishop.
I'm Mark Bishop.
And this time we are talking about the 12 Labors of Heracles. We are, of course, reading Jake Jackson's Myths and Legends, and we are back on Zoom for this episode, and we'll be back on Zoom for the next few episodes for the foreseeable future, at the very least.
So I can see you, but I don't see what your t-shirt says. What is your t-shirt?
My t-shirt says, I got this in Memphis, Tennessee at the Stax Museum. It says the Memphis Sound and has the Stax logo.
I'm actually wearing my Truman shirt.
Oh, very nice.
Coincidentally.
Yes.
I also have an announcement to you. I got us matching bookmarks.
Oh, how nice.
I needed a bookmark. And so on the front it has like what looks like a reproduction of, can you see that? Socrates. Like from a statue or something. It says, the greatest way to live with honor in this world is to be what we pretend to be. I like that quote.
That is nice.
And then on the back, it has a different quote.
Oh.
From me.
Oh, what's it? I can't see it. What's it say?
Can't see that?
I have you in a little small screen.
Your opinion is wrong.
Oh, very nice. That looks like the same company that did the bookmark that Mom got me for Christmas with the One Ring inscription.
I think,
or, sorry, not the One Ring inscription, the Not All Who Wander Are Lost poem.
Yes. Yeah. So I got two of them.
Mm.
I was gonna have three quotes in the back, but I got too small. I was going to have my famous quote, your opinion is wrong. And then I was going to have a quote, pain don't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's a famous quote from Roadhouse. And I just didn't realize when I looked up that quote, because I wanted to find out that it was from the main character, Dalton, who's played by Patrick Swayze. I didn't realize Dalton was his last name.
Oh.
His last name is Dalton. I think his first name is James.
Huh.
Somehow that's not cool.
I thought you knew everything about Roadhouse.
I didn't.
Oh, unfortunate.
Never say anything other than calling him Dalton.
Mm.
His last name.
Yes.
And then the last one was going to be knowledge is good. A quote from Emil Faber.
Mm.
Do you know who Emil Faber is?
The name is familiar.
It should be, because he is the former president of Faber College, founder of Faber College, which is where Delta House was in the famous movie Animal House.
Of course.
It starts off with the theme from Faber, and it kind of pans over the campus and then shows the statue of him. And at the inscription of the base of the statue is "Knowledge is good." You know, appreciating its simplicity, and it's kind of deeper than what you might think.
Yes, that's beautiful. We should probably actually get into the topic of the podcast, though. Unfortunately.
All right. What do you mean, unfortunately?
I mean nothing by that.
I guess my talking about these quotes was so much better than what we're going to do about the 12 labors of Heracles. I always want to say Hercules.
Yeah. Hercules is the Latin name. Heracles is the Greek.
Hercules.
Nope, that's not it.
That's not it?
Nope. Heracles.
Dr. Dolittle? What is that from? It's from an Eddie Murphy movie where he plays a bunch of characters. And one of them says, Hercules, Hercules. Because she's saying how strong this other person should be. You're my Hercules.
Ah, that makes sense.
Eddie Murphy impression of Eddie Murphy being, I think, a fat black woman.
Oh, that's spot on, I think. And so we start off with the story of Heracles and kind of how he came to be. So he was a son of Zeus and a mortal woman. And Zeus, of course, is the king of the gods, and his wife, Hera, the queen of the gods, did not like that Heracles was the son of a mortal woman. So she kind of had it out for him and just wanted to make his life miserable, as we'll see throughout the rest of this episode. And so early on in Heracles' life, Hera brought a fit of insanity upon him, in which Heracles killed his own children. Then he was forced to serve his cowardly cousin, King Eurystheus of Argos, for 12 years to purify his soul and earn immortality. And that's where we see all 12 labors as he's serving under King Eurystheus.
Story.
Yes, it is very tragic.
Horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has all this strength because he's a son of Zeus, but it's quite a price to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow all these people that have the special powers in Greek mythology are all like cursed with that, though.
Yeah.
They'd be much better off if they were just out there plowing a field.
That's true.
Anyway, go ahead. First one.
Yeah, so his first task was to defeat the Lion of Nemea and bring its impenetrable skin back to Eurystheus. So I'm doing the same thing. Heracles set out with a bow and an arrow, a bronze sword, and his beloved club. Coming to the lion's cave, Heracles tried to shoot at the beast, but the arrows bounced right off, and so he went into the cave and stunned the lion with one blow from his club and throttled it with his bare hands. However, he could not cut its skin until Athena came to him and inspired him to use the lion's own claws to cut the skin, and so he skinned the lion and returned to the palace. Eurystheus was astonished that Heracles had succeeded, and was then terrified of him, and had a huge bronze jar built in which he could hide from Heracles. That's the story of his first labor. It's very, Eurystheus, I guess, is almost presented as a comic character at some points, because he's just deathly terrified of Heracles, and he's depicted as awful and cowardly and really kind of despicable at times.
Yeah, seems like a bad dude.
Yes, he's not a good dude.
The bronze, the bronze jar. A lot of bronze in this chapter.
There sure is.
Just thought I'd point that out because I thought that was interesting.
That's very interesting. So the next task was then the Lernaean Hydra. So the second task was, of course, to defeat the multi-headed Hydra made by Hera. And so Heracles set out with his nephew Iolaus, and he used flaming arrows to draw the monster into the open. He then hacked off the beast's heads, but each time he chopped one off, 2 more grew in their place. So coming up with a clever idea, he ordered Iolaus to burn the stumps of every head that he cut off, thereby cauterizing the wound and ensuring that no new head would grow back. Finally, Heracles chopped off the last head and buried it under a giant rock for good measure, and he dipped his arrows in the Hydra's blood, making them poisonous. However, because Iolaus had helped, Eurystheus refused to count this task as one of the labors.
I think it's still counted, though.
Yeah, I think Heracles kind of did most of the work. He just had a very helpful person to burn the heads.
It's true.
Yes.
He still did all the hard work. The other guy was just an assistant.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But I don't know where in the rules said he couldn't get help.
Mm-hmm.
He still did it.
Yeah. Which, if you can't get help, then that would kind of disqualify the first one, too, because Hera was the one, or excuse me, not Hera. Hera does not want to help him with anything. Athena inspired him to cut off the lion's skin, but Eurystheus kind of picks some of them to say that you can't do this.
That's more of information as opposed to actively participating in the defeating of the Hydra. Because this guy, his assistant, played an active role. He would say, hey, you should cauterize the wounds, the cut head. He actually did cauterize it, although it was Heracles' idea.
That's true. That's a good point.
But he didn't care what the king said anyway.
That's also very true. He is not wanting to serve him. He just kind of is serving Eurystheus because he has to, unfortunately.
Like, I caused the death, so there you go. We're moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
The king says, well, it doesn't count. Oh, yeah? Why don't you get out of your jar and say that to me? Okay, how about number 3? He's trying to get more and more impossible missions, which is pretty clever, I guess.
Yes, and so this third labor is about the Cretan Hind. So Eurystheus and Hera then realized that a monster would not stop Heracles, so they then came up with a new plan to try to stop him. He was then ordered to catch the Cretan Hind, Artemis's sacred female deer that was nearly impossible to catch. Heracles chased the deer for a year, and as it stopped at the river Ladon, Heracles fired an arrow between its legs to startle it and not harm it, so as not to invoke Artemis's wrath. He explained his situation to the goddess Artemis, who agreed to let him take the deer so long as it was returned safely. Taking the hind to Eurystheus, Heracles said that he must claim it with his bare hands, but as Eurystheus reached for it, Heracles released it just out of his grasp, and it ran safely back to Artemis. I thought this was a very clever way of dealing with this issue.
Yeah. And it bought the king about a year because he had to chase his stupid deer out of the world for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, yeah, go chase down this impossible deer.
Yeah, but it's very clever on Heracles' part, too, because he definitely does not want to anger Artemis by killing her sacred deer, so he just ties it up and brings it back and then just lets it go. He technically completed the task, so.
Correct. That's right. Here you go. Here's your deer. Poof. Gone. Stupid. Told you, here it is.
All right, and then the next task was about the Eurymanthian boar. So traveling through the mountains to catch the boar, Heracles rested with his friend Pholus the centaur.
There was this one time I was having some drinks, and I think I met this Eurymanthian boar. It's the most boring person I've ever talked to.
Oh my god.
Bored me to tears.
This is not the same kind of bore, but thank you. Thank you for that.
Sometime the next time I am with someone that they're boring me, I'm going to say, you remind me of that you're a Mathian boar. The story of Heracles and the Eurymathian boar. That one was more interesting. Capturing a wild pig in a snowdrift. I didn't really anticipate that.
Yes, but you're skipping ahead a little bit because as Heracles is with his friend Pholus the centaur, Heracles asks for wine. And so Pholus reluctantly gives Heracles the wine that was given by the wine god Dionysus as a gift for all centaurs. This attracted all of the other centaurs who attacked Heracles, but he defended himself with his poisonous arrows, killing many and wounding his mentor Chiron, who advised him on how to catch the boar. Pholus then examined an arrow, accidentally dropping it into his foot, killing him. Heracles then sadly continued the quest, and following Chiron's advice, he drove the boar into a snowdrift, tied it, and carried it back to Eurystheus, who was cowering in the jar.
Yeah, that's kind of a unnecessary side story with regard to the wine. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a few places throughout the rest of the stories of the 12 labors where it kind of like bleeds into other myths and legends. Right. We'll see later on kind of with the Minotaur as well, with these sort of things. They're all kind of really interconnected, is what you kind of see with the Greek myths, which is fascinating.
Right, you see another character kind of coming in and out or it affecting them later or something.
Absolutely. So the next task was about the Augean stables. So Eurystheus then ordered Heracles to clean the stables of King Augeas of Elis, who owned immortal cattle and had not cleaned their stables for over 30 years. Heracles then went to King Augeas and asked for 1/10 of the herd if he succeeded in cleaning the stables, and Augeas agreed. So Heracles tore great holes in the stable walls, dug trenches leading to the holes, and then redirected the rivers Alpheus and Peneus, and all the dirt was swept away as the water rushed through the stables. Augeas then refused to honor their agreement until his son Peleus intervened, and Heracles returned to Eurystheus, who did not count this task as well, claiming that Heracles was paid well for it and the river had done all the work.
This one I think was really wrong because nobody else did the work. He did all the work redirecting the water, just because. But I don't know how he dug those trenches in one day. That's pretty impressive. But there was never a deal they didn't get paid for doing all these things. A side deal on each one of them.
Yeah.
He should have got somebody to pay him for each one of them.
Exactly.
But he didn't. So but again, the king's like, oh, that doesn't count. Although I don't know why he didn't care. I mean, why doesn't he just think, hurry up and do 12 things and then you're free and then you go away? I guess he's not going to go away though. It's the problem. He wants him dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first 5 tasks I had kind of heard of before, but this next one is, I had never heard of this before. Of course, I'd never really read the story of Heracles, but this one was unusual. The Stymphalian birds.
You don't like the birds?
I'm not saying I don't like them. I'm just saying this was completely unfamiliar to me. I'd heard of the other 5 tasks, but I've never come across this one.
Have you ever seen the old Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Birds?
I have not.
Oh, you should. It's very good.
I've heard. And so the 6th task was to remove the Stymphalian birds, who devoured anything with their razor-sharp bronze beaks and could shoot brass feathers. Heracles tried to reach them where they were standing in a swampy lake near Stymphalios, but the mud would not bear his weight, and so Athena gave him a pair of bronze clappers forged by the god Hephaestus. When he shook them, the birds took flight from the terrible sound. Heracles then shot dozens of them, and they never returned, and he was now halfway done with his labors.
You're not going to mention how those are the menacing birds that would later torment Jason and the Argonauts?
Oh, I should have mentioned that. I'm so sorry.
Because that's the same birds.
It is the same birds. Like I said, they're all kind of interconnected. You'll see the same sort of things happen to the different heroes throughout these stories.
And again, more references to bronze.
And
this time brass, too. What's the difference between brass and bronze? I used to know that.
Brass is...
Iron or something?
Brass, I think, is with aluminum? No. Maybe. I don't know. I know they're 2 different alloys, but I'm not sure what they're made of. Hate to disappoint.
That's all right. I should have looked it up.
You should have. The next task is about the Cretan Bull. So King Minos of Crete had promised Poseidon to sacrifice anything that the gods sent him, but when he was sent a beautiful snow-white bull, Minos refused to sacrifice it. And so Poseidon made Minos' wife, Queen Pasiphae, fall in love with the bull, siring the Minotaur, which was trapped in the maze of the labyrinth and was half man and half bull. The white bull was now rampaging around Crete, and Heracles was ordered to catch it, and he caught it quite easily, squeezing its neck until it surrendered, and then riding it back to Eurystheus, who had no idea what to do with it, and then released it again. It then rampaged around Greece, to everyone's surprise, until Theseus, an acolyte of Heracles, killed it in Marathon, later subduing the Minotaur himself.
Did you notice there's a typo in this section? I'm always interested when I find a copywriting error in the book.
I did see the error. It's supposed to say beast, and it says east.
Yeah. It says east on page 246. So those of you following along, I hope you caught that. If you did before I mention it, we'll send you a prize.
And so Jake Jackson, who is definitely reading this podcast, we would request an edited version with that correction shipped to both of us, please.
I don't need one. I wrote the letter B next to.
Okay, then ship one to me. He's corrected it already in his copy.
I write in my books.
I can't stand writing in books. I have to have a separate notebook. I can't write in a book. So the next 8th task was to steal the barbarous flesh-eating mares of Diomedes, the king of Thrace, who was a giant who ruled the savage Bistones. So Heracles traveled to Thrace with a group of warriors, and they were attacked by the Bistones, leaving the youth Abderos to look after the horses, and the horses then killed him in a frenzied violence. Devastated at Abderos's death, Heracles sought vengeance, annihilating Diomedes and feeding him to his mares, who were then satiated and brought to Eurystheus, who feared them and set them loose. And they roamed to Mount Olympus, where they were savaged by wild beasts. So this is also another trend of Eurystheus having no clue what to do with any of the things that Heracles brings him. He's either terrified of Heracles or just does not know what to do and just causes widespread destruction because he just releases these things back into the wild.
That's right. Hey, I want you to bring this really dangerous thing back to our community. Just trying to make sure he gets killed, and then he doesn't get killed. He brings a dangerous thing back to the community. He's just like, let it go. Let it run wild. Get it out of here.
It's the consequences of his own actions. He doesn't know what to do.
I didn't think he'd actually bring it to me. 6 other things to you. Don't you think he's going to get to these things?
This was the 8th one. You'd think he would realize that Heracles has a pretty good track record with these.
It's at least 50-50 he's going to get this thing. Or these things. These evil horses. I mean, really, he's killed the pig. He's chased down the deer. Get the bull or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think he round up a couple horses? I mean, granted, they're flesh-eating horses, but I don't know. Seems like he should have thought that through.
Yes, I don't think Eurystheus is the smartest guy. I don't think we're supposed to think of him as a great leader in these stories, to be honest with you.
Well, the next one kind of made me sad.
Yeah, this one was rough, because this 9th task was to take the power-giving belt of Hippolyte, the queen of the Amazons, a fierce and brave race of female warriors, for Eurystheus wanted the belt for his daughter Admete. Heracles and his followers then traveled to the land of the Amazons, explaining his task to Hippolyte, who gladly gave him the belt. However, the vengeful Hera manipulated the Amazons into thinking the warriors had come to take their queen, and a terrible battle ensued, ending only when Heracles killed Hippolyte, then returning to Eurystheus with the belt. Yes, this one was very sad, because this is like the first one that really just kind of goes well for Heracles, and then Hera intervenes, and everything goes very, very poorly, of course.
For everybody. Well, except for Heracles. I mean, he survives, I guess.
That's true.
But it's just another example of their stories about how the gods or fates or however you want to say it are kind of manipulating and against people and explaining irrational conduct. Because they basically turned these people into believing that that he was going to steal their queen, which I you can kind of understand. I don't understand a lot of what's going on in our society today. It'd make more sense if some queen goddess was purposely manipulating people. Then I can understand how people are acting about modern day stuff without getting too political.
That's true. I mean, it's just all of the gods definitely have their own sort of desires, I guess. They have their own purposes. They're never doing anything for the benefit of anybody else. They're really kind of portrayed as selfish most of the time, with some exceptions, of course, but they definitely have their own sort of story that they want to tell.
And they all have a slightly different personality too. Mm-hmm. Some are more vengeful than others. Some like Athena's helping out, although she manipulates too. But Hera's just vengeful. You know,
Mm-hmm.
she wants to murder this guy.
And it depends on the story, of course, too. I mean, in this case, Hera's particularly vengeful because this is the son of her husband and another woman. So I'm not saying she's justified in doing all of these terrible things, but she at least does have a reason for it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Not irrational.
Yes. And so the next task is about the cattle of Geryon. And so Geryon was a giant monster with 3 heads and 3 sets of arms and legs, whose cattle were renowned. Tasked to steal the cattle, Heracles set out for Eurystheus, passing through the desert of Libya, there firing an arrow directly towards Helios, the god of the sun, who was so impressed that he let him use his golden cup, in which Heracles sailed through the sky to Eurystheus. There, Geryon's guard dog Orthros and herdsman Eurytion attacked him, but he killed them with 1 club swing each. And then Geryon charged at him, but Heracles shot him with a poisoned arrow through one of the heads, killing him instantly. Heracles then led the cattle back to Argos, but Hera sent a gadfly, irritating and scattering all of the cattle, and Heracles spent the better part of a year gathering them. And as soon as he had gathered them back together, Hera sent a flood to make a river uncrossable, but Heracles filled the river with stones, finally coming back to Eurystheus, who sacrificed the cattle to Hera.
I think anybody who spent any time in a desert or a dry land sympathized with the story about trying to shoot an arrow up and kill the sun god. He's in the middle of the desert. Out of the sun. What do you think of that story?
I like this one. I mean, it's definitely just seems like a miserable process for Heracles, because it's not just like defeat this one guy and then come back victorious. It's, defeat this guy and then round up these cattle for almost a year and then face this other challenge of actually just building a bridge out of stones to cross a flooded river. And it just seems like, if I was Heracles, it would seem like it was never going to end, really.
That's another time kill for the king to get his cousin out of the palace for another year or so.
True. Very true. Works out pretty well for Eurystheus, this one. He does not have to deal with any horrible monsters that he then unleashes upon his people.
That is true.
And the next task is about the apples of the Hesperides. So Heracles was then tasked to fetch the golden apples that Gaia had given to Zeus and Hera on their wedding day, which were guarded by the dragon Ladon and the Hesperides, the nymph daughters of Atlas, the Titan condemned to forever hold up the heavens. Heracles set out, and he killed the eagle that tormented Prometheus by tearing out his liver every day. Prometheus told Heracles that only Atlas could retrieve the apples. Heracles then found the garden by forcing the shape-shifting sea god Nereus to tell him, by holding him in a vice-like grip, and so Nereus revealed the location of the garden.
That's the second time he put somebody in a headlock to get him to do something.
Yes, well, he's very strong.
Yes. I wonder if he gave him noogies.
I doubt Heracles gave the sea god Nereus any noogies.
I think that'd be a nice touch.
It would have been. It would have been a very nice touch. And so then coming to Atlas, Heracles said he would hold the sky for a while if Atlas went and took the apples. And so Atlas immediately agreed. But upon returning with the apples, Atlas refused to take back the sky. But as he turned to leave, Heracles asked if he would temporarily take back the sky just so he could get into a more comfortable position. And Atlas graciously agreed and held up the sky very briefly. And then Heracles just left, bringing the apples back to Eurystheus, which I thought was kind of funny. I mean, if you're Atlas, who has been holding up the sky for years, and then this dude says, well, can you just hold it again for one more second while I just readjust myself? You'd think you would see through that.
Well, especially since Atlas just reneged on his promise, to take it over. You think, I don't know, just kind of stupid funny.
And so then the last task is about Cerberus. So the final 12th task was the most dangerous. Heracles was to go into the underworld and bring Cerberus, the 3-headed dog who guarded the gates of Hades, back to Eurystheus alive. Heracles first went to Eleusis, where he was initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries, which would enable him to safely travel through the afterlife. Heracles, escorted by Athena and Hermes, came to the entrance to the underworld, where he encountered Charon the ferryman, who only let people cross the river Styx if there was a coin placed in their mouth and they were dead. Heracles, even though he did not meet either of these requirements, made Charon carry him across by his sheer force of anger, and so he was taken to Hades, the god of the dead. Hades agreed that he could take Cerberus if he overpowered the hound without any weapons, and so Heracles cornered Cerberus unarmed by the river Alcaron and wrestled it until it surrendered. He bound it and dragged it back to Eurystheus, who fled in terror, begging Heracles to return Cerberus and then releasing him from his service, earning Heracles his immortality and his freedom.
Yay!
Yay, he did it.
Did them all. So, what are your thoughts about all these 12 things he's got to do?
I really like all these stories. I mean, they're very almost comedic at times, especially where you see, especially with King Eurystheus, just fleeing in terror or just unleashing these terrible beasts upon his own people. I think it's very funny how he just tells Heracles to do this thing and then is always completely shocked when Heracles manages to do the thing and then just completely panics. That's always a good bit.
It reminds me of Mel Brooks playing the governor in Blazing Saddles. So if you have not seen that movie?
I think I have seen that movie.
Well, you have. You should have.
I think I have.
It's a brilliant movie that could not be made today.
Yes, it could not.
But he's just some despicable fool that is manipulated by Harvey Korman's character, whatever his character's name is, to do various things.
Mm.
I liked them. It's the stories that a lot of them, a lot of people know. There's different trials and tribulations, and I think this was more of feats of strength and of will, a little bit more pure than the last chapter where he didn't get distracted by laying down with some women for a year and fathering children that he later abandons, and he doesn't rape and pillage and get sidetracked.
Mm-hmm.
The story starts with him doing evil things. Well, I guess then the question is whether it's evil if you're under a spell and you go insane.
Mm-hmm.
And so that brings up, moral and legal responsibility for killing people when you're in some sort of spell or driven mad.
Yeah, I guess this kind of disrupts my theory that there's really no Greek hero that you can really 100% root for, but I think you really can root for Heracles throughout this. Like, he never really does anything that's truly despicable. I guess the only, bad thing that he does is, ask for the wine from the centaurs. And even that's kind of iffy because, would he have known that that's really the sacred wine? I mean, it might be explained in the original story, but we're, of course, just reading a summary. But yeah, I think really he just does good things throughout the entire time. Because something that I didn't really mention is that most of these monsters and everything are already terrorizing the people that live nearby. And so he's kind of freeing all these people as he goes from these terrible calamities and beasts that are really trying to kill all of them.
Yeah, I've forgotten about the drinking the wine and killing all the horse dudes.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call those?
Centaurs.
Centaurs, yeah. Which, you can understand why they're upset. That's like the god's gift of wine. And they're like, hey, what did I smell? Hey, you opened up the wine. Why is he drinking it? And they get all, mad and they try to kill him. So I guess in a sense it's self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
But still he ends up killing his buddy. And yeah, that's kind of bad.
Yeah.
Other than that, he does a pretty good job.
He's definitely better compared to all the other heroes we've read about.
That is correct.
He does not just completely give up on his quest like you were saying.
Right. Or just get distracted just because they want to do something different for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Kill people or rape women or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of the rapiness.
Yes, that's always good.
You want a complete lack of rapiness in your heroes.
Exactly. That's usually what you look for.
That's one of the minimum qualifications. None of that stuff, because otherwise, yeah, that's never good.
Yes, never good at all. But yeah, this was episode 17 of season 2 of Unlimited Opinions. I've been Adam Bishop.
We're already done? That was a quick episode. We were in here for 2 minutes.
It's been a half hour.
Okay, all right. We want to say,
you can continue if you have any other thoughts. Feel free to share them.
No, shut me down.
No, go ahead, share some thoughts.
I've got nothing else. I got nothing left. I thought we were gonna banter about for a little bit, but that's okay.
Well, we could banter away.
I'm out of banters.
Out of banters. That's unfortunate. Yes. Well, I've been Adam Bishop.
Well, I'm still Mark Bishop.
Well, you're still Mark Bishop, and you could still follow us on Twitter and maybe win a T-shirt. That's ULMTD Opinions on Twitter.
We're not going to tell them how to win it anymore. So if they want instructions how to win it, they have to listen to the previous couple episodes for the secret code to win a prize.
Yes, we did discuss the rules and regulations, I think a couple episodes ago, maybe 3 episodes ago. 2 or 3 episodes ago. And you can listen to that and find out how to win a free T-shirt.
Yes, and we can't tell them that they have to insult the podcast on their Twitter feed, and they'll win the prize.
Yes, we cannot tell them that to win the T-shirt, you have to first go to Unlimited Opinions, ULMTD Opinions on Twitter, say a disparaging comment about us publicly and tag us, and then provide us your address, and then, we can't say that.
That's correct. And don't put your address in public.
Yeah, don't do that. Actually, don't do that. Unironically, don't do that. Don't just put your address on Twitter. That is not a good idea.
And you may want to give us like a neutral third-party address, because after you insult us, you may not want to give us your address.
That we are not threatening people. Don't imply that we are going to come to their address.
We're going to personally deliver the prize.
We will not. That is not a promise.
Here's your T-shirt, you jerk. Kind of funny to hand those shirts, just like show up on somebody's doorstep and say, "Hey, let's go out for a beer." Oh, you can't drink a beer, but
I cannot.
drive us.
I could drive you, yeah.
All right, I think I'm done now.
You're done now? Okay. Well, this has been Unlimited Opinions. Like I said, the Twitter is ULMTD Opinions. I've been Adam Bishop.
I'm still Mark Bishop for the third time.
You haven't changed since like a minute ago?
I am a different person than I was a minute ago.
Really? That's profound.
It's like the river.
What river?
Any river. You can't step in the same river.
Oh. Yeah, like the philosopher. Who said that?
I did. I just said it.
That's not what I meant.
I forget.
Yeah. We should re-listen to the podcast.
I have to read that book. No, I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
Unfortunate.